Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Science Behind It. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about weeds and weed control. So we're going to be looking at getting our weeds out of our garden, how they are so disruptive to our garden, why they're so bad for our garden, and some tools that we can use to help us get these weeds and these pesky things out of our garden. So come with us, and we're going to talk about the science behind it.
Hey babe, I'm going to pick weeds.
You know there's a lot out there, right?
I just want to discuss kind of what weeds are like in real life, real times. You know, say you're in your 20s and you start going to college and your buddy and you say, you know, I want to get a house or I want to get an apartment. We'll just split the rent, you know, it'll just be us two. Week goes by, your buddy's like, hey, why don't we throw someone else in the mess? We could split the rent, go thirds, it's cheaper for everyone. Well, weeds are kind of like that. Start off one, get two, if left unkept, well, everyone joins the party and no one's paying the rent. Here's what that looks like. Now here are a few ideas on how not to control, manage, and eliminate your weed infestation. Now since these are just patio weeds, I'm just going to take these out the quickest way I know. We're going to weed whip them. Whenever you're weed whipping, always look ahead of what you're doing because there's always a toad, a frog, animal, something's always laying in the brush. So always pay attention to what you're doing. Now that we have the patio looking a lot nicer and cleaner, we need to redirect the focus onto the garden, where we need to be more intrusive on these weeds so that we can stunt the development of them before they rob all the nutrients from our young plants. Let's go take a look.
I thought I told you to leave! If you want to be in the ground, I'll put you 6 feet under! Oh, you're gonna play by my rules! Better enjoy it while it lasts, cause you're about to be done! I'm sick of your nonsense! You don't even look good!
Now let's take a look at some of the tools you can utilize to manage your weeds. Absolutely not. You really think that's better? No, Corey. No! Finally. So there's a few different tools that you can use to eliminate the weeds in the garden and your patio. The uses are going to be completely different for what you want to do with the weeds and how much you want to eliminate them. The first one can be the weed whacker. Now this is just going to cut down the weeds. It's not going to damage the roots, so they're going to keep growing back, but you're going to be able to manage them a little bit more easily. So it's not going to take too much time. Alright, so next we have the garden hoe. You can have just the short handled or the long handled. Depending on if you're going to be kneeling down, you're going to want just a shorter handle. You can really focus on what you're doing. Or you can just use a long handle if you want to protect your back a little bit more. Both are going to be as effective. Lastly, for cleanup, you just use your garden rake. Just rake your weeds in a pile and get rid of them, put them in your mulch pile, the composting. Those will be good for your nitrogen for your compost process.
So let's now look at the science behind why weeds are bad for your garden. So we know that they're kind of pesky, they make your garden look less aesthetically pleasing, but there's actually something more kind of sinister going on with these plants. So just like any other organism on Earth, we have competition at play here. So when we have the weeds have found a nice new area that they can get nutrients from, especially if you put the compost in. Now they're getting nitrogen, they're getting that nice carbon rich mixture that you've made, and they're going to use that for their own nutrients, and they're going to start to kind of impose on that space that we've got for our actual good vegetables and our other plants that we want in our garden. So they're going to start to encroach on that. What that means is that means less nutrients for your plants. The weeds are going to come in. They're going to start to take over the land for your actual good stuff. And we could think of, okay, we go through, we have the weed whacker, maybe we chop off the tops. So the more dangerous part is going to be the roots underneath, because they're still going to be taking in nutrients, and they're still going to help that weed grow back. So you could cut off the tops, but really what you need to get down to are the roots underneath. That's why you need to go down and rip those roots out, because they're still going to start to take away those nutrients. And what we tend to see here is what we've had here in our garden over the past few days is a ton of rain. Now, we would think of rain as usually a good thing, but what ends up happening is that the vegetables only need a certain amount of water. They will start to it'll be kind of like a detriment to them if they're overwatered. But the weeds are going to excel here. So they're going to start to blow up because of all the excess water that they're receiving. So you kind of have a double-edged sword here. You've got too much water for your plants. They're going to start to have trouble growing. You may even see some yellowing of the leaves. But the weeds are going to start to grow bigger because of this. Now they grow bigger, they're taking more nutrients from your vegetables, and this is why you really need to get into them and get them out of there. Don't let them take over your garden, and don't leave them for another day. We want to get them out as soon as possible. So something that's even more sinister that can be happening here is beneath the surface. We could have a property called allelopathic property or allelopathy, and what that means is that some weeds will actually be sending out chemicals within the soil that will not allow other plants to grow there. So you end up having kind of like a cone where the roots are placed underneath the soil that nothing else can grow in. Now sometimes we might think, okay, we could put certain plants together, they both are taking the nutrients equally, they're both able to grow well. But when you have these type of properties in these weeds, they will actually start to kill off or not even allow other plants to grow around them. So it's super important to go in there and grab those weeds out of there before they start to have this effect on your plants.
Alright, so what we're just gonna do is we're gonna disrupt these weeds. It's super simple. All you just wanna do is kind of dig down, scoop it up, and that's just gonna really destroy that root system on your weeds. So here's a bed with pretty minimal weeds in it. Don't let the 2-3 days go by because it's gonna be filled up like the other bed. So when you're out here picking your veggies or going ahead and cutting the grass or something, just come out here with the garden hoe real quick and just do a quick sweep through. That's going to disrupt any type of root system that's trying to develop with these weeds. And it's super quick when they're not growing. It's just to come through and not have to struggle picking out all the weeds, because we have very minimal to deal with already. So stay active and make sure that you're coming out here and you're not being reactive, you're being proactive on this stuff.
Alright, everybody, that's going to wrap up our show for today. We hope that you enjoyed our show. We took a look at weeds, why they're bad, how they disrupt the growth of our garden, and some nifty little tools that we can use to help us get rid of them, and so we can get our garden looking as pristine as possible.
Yep, and just always remember, you just gotta keep up on those weeds so they don't further damage any part of your garden, and just be active with it.
A little bit of work now saves you a ton of work later, so keep up on it, disrupt that soil when you can, and get those weeds out of there, and have yourself a nice looking yield at the end of the year.
So, we just want to say thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. See you later. All right. Now you can go past and do whatever you want.
Want to go back and forth?